morning's program. It's an unusual one. Rather than having an individual platform speaker, I'm pleased to introduce the members of our Environmental Stewardship Committee. This committee includes, I hope I don't forget anyone, Virginia Arnold, Vince Brancato, Robert Eber, Renee Goodstein, Mary Houts, Phyllis Kreutner, Abe Markman, and Monica Weiss. Is that all? Okay. The NYSEC's Environmental Stewardship Committee grew out of the involvement of a small group of members in the Moving Planet Day rally in September 2011, when New Yorkers and other committed people all over the world got together to rally support for moving the planet beyond dependence on fossil fuels. And I'm going to let them tell you the rest of the story. The title of their program today is Solutions for a Planet at Risk, a look at grassroots efforts, forward-thinking policies, and programs that work. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Earth Day. My name is Vincent Brancato, and I'm a member of our society here, and a member of the Environmental Stewardship Committee. And I get to work with some pretty talented people, as you will see, who have crafted today's program. The slide behind me is what is claimed to be the world's largest spruce tree, with a 58-foot 11-inch circumference and a height of 191 feet. It is believed to be about 1,000 years old. I took this photo last fall in our wonderful Olympic Peninsula temperate rainforest in the northwest corner of Washington State. The large parts of this rainforest are in the national park or in the national wilderness and are protected and have found their solution on our planet at risk. During the past year, many of us have been involved in work and struggles to motivate our politicians and fellow citizens to see and face and fight the challenges facing us with climate change. And for those of you who know me, hydraulic fracking both in New York State and in our nation. The challenges do not seem to be going away very easily. But there are some positive news balancing against the serious and grim news on the environmental fronts. The technological advances that permit us to be threatened by global warming, fossil fuel consumption, various hazardous mining methods such as tar sands and hydrofracking, and deep-sea drilling for oil are moving alongside technological advances that permit us to harvest power from the sun, the wind, and geothermal, and the tides, with knowledge that can permit us to preserve and protect our natural resources, our healthy air, our drinking water, our environment, our beautiful Mother Earth. We have to be sure that our fellow Earth dwellers understand that this struggle is not only for oil and gas and for energy, but also for water and air quality, for example, while trying to protect and improve the quality of life for all our fellow peoples. We have to try to make as many as possible understand the real promise of renewable energy resources. This morning, our committee wants to celebrate Earth Day by sharing information with you about successes and progress that have been taking place on various environmental fronts and in differing ways. Please hold any applause until the end of our program. Our first presenter is Renee Goodstein, who will talk about tropical rainforests.
Rainforests are ecosystems that are critically important to the survival of humans and our fellow animal and plant species. As we can see, the rainforests are beautiful, but there are additional reasons to protect them. Here are just 5. 1, breathing. Often called the lungs of our planet, rainforests absorb carbon dioxide from the air, provide us with oxygen, and also help to prevent global warming. 2, biodiversity. While rainforests cover only 6% of the Earth's surface, they are home to over half of the world's known plant and animal species. 3, medicine. Ingredients found in rainforests have helped to treat diseases such as diabetes, cancer, and hundreds of other maladies. 4, food. A mere sample of foods originating in and around rainforests are bananas, coffee, tea, sugar, and beans. 5, people. There are indigenous people living in the rainforest. It is their home. When rainforests die, so do its trees, animals, plants, and its people and their cultures. I would be remiss if I did not say that there is a lot of bad news concerning the destruction of rainforests through cattle ranching, logging, agriculture, mining, and building oil pipelines and dams. Governments have tried things, but they always fall through. The hope then lies in citizenship, because we can demand follow-through. Today, here is what some of our fellow global citizens are doing. Some organizations are purchasing rainforests in places like Costa Rica, Peru, Brazil, and Ecuador, ensuring their protection. Some organizations are working with indigenous people to develop eco-friendly tourism. In 2009, the UN proclaimed April 22nd as International Mother Earth Day. The increasing global recognition of our connection with the earth is perhaps one of the greatest signs that commitment to change is growing. Our next presenter will be Mary House, who will speak about ecosystem services.
Economists, governments, and business interests all over the world are starting to understand that the preservation of ecosystems is vitally important for sustainable growth and development. An ecosystem, as you know, is a natural area where living things and their non-living environment interact together to form a functional unit. These units can be as large as a tropical rainforest or as small as a pond. Ecosystems provide many benefits for human beings, including the cleaning of water and air, long-term carbon storage, and the buffering of climate extremes. Recently, these benefits have been dubbed ecosystem services, and their economic values are starting to be included in the plans for business and governmental projects. Environmental preservation is starting to be understood as a significant economic asset. An early and highly successful example of an ecosystem services strategy is one that has been a major factor in preserving the high quality of New York City's water supply in a cost-efficient manner. This water comes from rivers and streams in the New York City watersheds, two areas of upstate lands totaling almost 2,000 square miles. And you can see there, the one in the south is smaller, that's the Croton watershed, and the Catskill, Delaware watershed is further north and is much larger. Now, these forest and rural ecosystems had provided excellent natural filtration at no cost until the 1980s, when an increase in suburban and industrial development began to overload the natural filtration capacity of the smaller Croton River watershed. Since water that is safe to drink must go through a filtration process, even before it can be disinfected, the city had to provide what Mother Nature could no longer do. A filtration plant was built at a cost of $3 billion, plus $50 million a year for operation. By the 1990s, the much larger Catskill, Delaware watershed to the north was receiving increasing amounts of pollution due to new farming techniques and a growing population. At first, the consensus of those in charge was that another, bigger filtration plant would be necessary, at about 3 times the cost of the first one. But this time, instead of again replacing Mother Nature's free water filtration services with an enormously expensive plant, the city developed alternative programs at a fraction of the cost so that successful natural filtration could continue. The most innovative of these programs was one that was hammered out cooperatively by the city and farmers living in watershed areas. This program has made it economically feasible for watershed farmers to use non-polluting practices on their farms and to refrain from selling to developers. The alternative programs have been extremely successful. The water supply from the Catskill, Delaware watershed passes filtration tests handily each year, and worldwide, they have been an inspiration for many other programs using ecosystem strategies around the world. Monica Weiss will now follow me with a talk about electric cars and public policy in Denmark. Denmark has a long tradition of active energy policy initiated by the first oil crisis in 1973. The Danish Parliament has successfully instituted bold policies to both reduce energy consumption and increase renewable energy resources. Denmark has simultaneously managed to reduce its dependency on fossil fuels and sustain high economic growth. Their plan is to completely abandon fossil fuels by 2050, with renewables providing almost 70% of their electricity production by 2020. American social entrepreneur Shai Agassi founded his company called Better Place for the purpose of mass marketing electric cars in Denmark. Their enlightened leadership and progressive energy policies make Denmark ripe for innovation. Dong, the Danish oil and natural gas company, which is largely a government-owned company, has been providing most of its energy from coal and natural gas, with about 15% from wind energy. Agassi's idea was to link the wind production to electric cars by storing the excess wind energy in lithium-ion batteries. The notion that 750 windmills plus a fleet of all-electric cars would equal zero oil consumption is not only exciting but possible. Better Place worked with Renault Nissan to produce an affordable electric car that could be charged at home. Nighttime charging was highly desirable because this was when the excess wind energy had nowhere to go. For shorter trips and commutes, this would suffice. However, for longer distances, these cars would come equipped with a GPS that would automatically locate the nearest battery switch station, similar to a gas station, whereupon driving onto a ramp, the car's battery located on the underside of the vehicle would be robotically removed and replaced with a fully charged one in only 40 seconds. Better Place would own the batteries, and the owner of the vehicle would essentially pay them for each mile driven. Agassi's company pays Dong Energy for the wind power stored in the batteries. It's a completely closed cycle that allows for the Danish electricity grid to take back the power during peak times. Danish policies incentivize the purchase of electric vehicles by charging an almost 200% sales tax, an environmental tax on all new conventional cars, with an additional 60% tax on gasoline, which makes a $25,000 electric car with no excise tax and no gas costs very desirable. Electric car production is increasing worldwide, with the U.S. having the largest fleet of plug-in vehicles in the world, about 75,000 highway-capable vehicles sold since 2010. And most recently, our own mayor has outlined infrastructure initiatives, including curbside vehicle chargers that fully charge a car in 30 minutes, requiring that 20% of all new parking spaces in New York City and private developments be wired for EV charging, and by 2020 having 1/3 of all New York City taxi fleet electric vehicles. Our next speaker is Bob Eaton with Wetlands.
Good morning.
Morning.
Wetlands used to be considered to have little environmental value, with not much thought to the consequences of filling them in, dumping in them, or draining them, or most importantly, to assessing the impact of any disturbance to them in adjacent areas. Only recently has their importance been understood. In Connecticut, soil scientists have found that inland wetlands make up 25% of the total land area in the state, in Connecticut, and they play an essential role in holding surface and underground water. They also act as a natural filter for many pollutants by trapping them from runoff before they discharge to a larger waterway. They also are a storage basin for large amounts of water that can trap sediments, stop erosion, and detain dangerous floodwaters. They provide habitat for wildlife, or in some cases, can be their sole habitat. Despite the current recognition of wetlands' importance, many potentially conflicting interests still exist, such as those between landowners and the general public, and between developers and conservationists. Many states have adopted programs beyond those enacted by the federal government. For example, in 1972, due to increased awareness of the importance of wetlands, the Connecticut Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Act passed in the state. This act spells out guidelines for the Department of Environmental Protection to help local agencies protect wetlands by regulating development. A key issue in deciding whether to withhold approval of a proposed activity is the impact that the activity may have on an area some distance from the subject area, for example, sites downstream. Grassroots public education initiatives were critical in the decision to establish wetlands commissions in 143 towns in Connecticut. It is only through the continuing efforts of citizens at the local and state levels and through education that we can and will continue to protect the Earth's wetlands. Next is Phyllis Kreitner, who will talk about rooftop farming.
Okay, I hope you've heard about rooftop farming. If you haven't, you will now. Rooftop farming sounds like wishful thinking, but it truly isn't. This concept is real and becoming a popular idea for promoting more climate-friendly city living around the world. It's being used in Tokyo, Montreal, Honolulu, Chicago, to name a few locations. New York City in particular is looking at this concept with keen interest. Why? What does rooftop farming offer us? Large rooftops, especially industrial rooftops, offer our city acreage for farming. It can answer the huge demand for fresh vegetables grown locally. Farms above our heads can reduce the pollution and noise due to transport and delivery. Fewer trucks on the streets, wouldn't that be great? Produce can be delivered as soon as it is picked, at its nutritionally highest value. It can lower the need for pesticides. Growing plants on rooftops has a cooling effect on the air. Who would think of that? New technologies can now produce electricity from plants. It saves water by harvesting rainwater. It also absorbs water and reduces the pressure on our sewer system, so needed. It creates new jobs and can make the city more livable and more beautiful. This is just the beginning. Rooftop farming is beginning to catch on as a desirable business concept, radically lowering transportation expenses and helping to make profit possible. Several farms are doing well and are already functioning in New York City. Brooklyn Grange, a commercial rooftop farm in Brooklyn, is planning to expand. Several other commercial farms are starting and making connections with nearby supermarkets to buy the produce that they grow. Basil and bok choy are growing in Brooklyn. Tomatoes, leeks, and cucumbers are growing in Queens. The South Bronx is looking forward to starting farms also. Imagine fresh vegetables picked that same day without the usual traffic and pollution issues. Think of it, our own flourishing farms right above our heads. By the way, at the Ethical Culture School next door to us is now building a hydroponic nursery on its roof. Well, it's actually our roof. And our own leader, Kurt Kiger, is running a science river barge in Yonkers with a hydroponic nursery that is completely energy self-sufficient and totally environmentally friendly. And we can go see it. Now, we have Abe Martin talking about grassroots activism.
This is titled Progress Since Moving Planet Day. Moving Planet Day, September 24th, 2011, was organized by Bill McKibben's 350.org. The purpose was to raise awareness of the human influence on climate change. Amazingly, about 1,000 grassroots groups in Europe, Africa, South America, Canada, and the United States responded by creating a wide range of carbon-free outdoor events. On that day, our ethical culture members spoke to hundreds of people in Central Park as we asked them to sign a petition urging the media to increase their coverage of the effects of the climate crisis. Unfortunately, all of that global and local activity did not generate an ounce of publicity in the United States. None, nada. We were quite disappointed, except that some wonderful, committed people joined us whose talents have flourished on this committee. The other good news is that since Moving Planet Day, we have seen important progress. For example, 1, Bill McKibben led 3 successful, continually growing, nonviolent civil disobedience protests in front of the White House, targeting the planned XL tar sands pipeline, carrying dirty oil and threatening the life, land, and water supply from Canada to Texas. The well-organized protests not only received a good amount of positive publicity, McKibben received a pledge from President Obama to delay the pipeline decision. 2, polls show that a marked increase in the public's acceptance that humans are mainly responsible for global warming. 3, our Ethical Culture Society is a member of another successful grassroots coalition, New Yorkers Against Fracking. It not only has educated many New Yorkers about the hazards of fracking, it has influenced Governor Cuomo to withhold approval until a clearer scientific determination is established. Although the president has a narrow range of action he can take without Congress, he has made clear that climate change will be on his priority list in his second term. As Obama has inferred, it is grassroots movements like 350.org and New Yorkers Against Fracking that opened the political space for him to widen his range of action. Next up is Virginia Arnold, who will talk about forest bathing.
Forest bathing is the newest Japanese scientific principle based on ancient Shinto and Buddhist beliefs on how the natural world has an impact on our overall health. Japanese live and work in stressful, densely populated cities, along with a fear of 1,500 rumbling earthquakes a year, and now a nuclear plant meltdown. Tokyo families can take a 75-mile train excursion to a mountainous national park to spend hours walking and hiking. With all five senses open to the quiet environment, they take in the full healing of nature. Scientists are stationed at the park to check the blood pressure of several hikers before and after their walks. The results show healthy decreases from the original readings. Because we are no longer hunter-gatherers nor live on farms, we are not exposed to a wide range of microbes, which help regulate our immune system. By studying our cells and neurons, the scientists have discovered how green spaces soothe our body and mind. Forest bathing is proving to relieve allergies, asthma, back strain, nerve activity, lowers anxiety and depression, improves cognition and empathy, and has had good results for some cancers. Japanese forests cover 67% of the country's landmass. The government has funded research since 2004 and intends to designate a total of 100 forest therapy sites within 10 years for more scientific discovery. Other countries are following Japan's lead, including South Korea and Finland, and there are now some university studies in the United States and England. We are just beginning to understand how everything is connected and affected by every other thing on Earth, and how we can interact with nature to lead healthier lives. Our planet offers everything we need if we take care of it, and one way is to expand and save the forests and all our natural resources throughout the world. I will end this part of our presentation with a Navajo prayer to honor our Earth, which will be followed by a closing video. The mountains, I become part of it. The herbs, the fir tree, I become part of it. The morning mists, the clouds, the gathering water, I become part of it. The wilderness, the dewdrops, the pollen, I become part of it.
I want to thank you all for your attention to my fellow committee members. There's information in the back on the table about these projects, and information on how we can participate in appreciating and protecting our world. Please let us know if you have any suggestions, comments, questions, and if we can call on you to help us with future efforts in this area. Thanks so very much.